I think I think we're live. Actually, I think we're fired up.
Hi. Yep. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are live. My name is Karen Doyle, and I'm Operations Director of CTAM Europe. I hope you're all feeling well today and ready for a superb CTAM Europe webinar. I'm pleased to welcome you to our two presenters today. On screen there, looking fabulous and raring to go, Dennis Hodges, founder of Creatalyst and keynote speaker, who I'm sure many of you know from the industry and some of our past events and past webinars. Also, a big welcome to Leila Ansart for the first time with us. Leila is a certified executive coach and keynote speaker. Today's bootcamp is scheduled for an hour. We want it to be as interactive and hands-on as possible. You should all have received a link to download and print out a handout to work from throughout the session. If you haven't done so, if you click on the chat function, Leila has put it on there now, so you can print it out and work from that. If you have any questions or comments along the way, for this webinar, please let's use the chat function and not the Q&A session, the Q&A button, so we've got everything together. So sit back and enjoy, and I'll hand you over to Leila and Dennis. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We are so thrilled to be here with you this afternoon and hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Looks like we've got about 17 participants. Dennis, do you want to say hello?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody, and welcome. And Karen said, sit back and relax, but don't sit back too far, because this is a hands-on workshop today. It's a boot camp. And so, as Leila mentioned, there's a download. If you haven't downloaded that yet, please do, and print it out, because we're going to take some time throughout this webinar to do some hands-on work to help you through this process.
So the the poll window or the poll URL that is there on your screen, if you would open up a separate browser window, we're going to have you go back and forth between those during our session today. And you just type in the pollev.com with that code at the end. It's also linked in the chat box if you'd prefer to just tap on the link. And when you get there, there is a question for you to answer. So go ahead as we're waiting just a few moments to have everybody get logged in on that, and we'll start to show those answers and we'll get going.
So give us just a second here, let people log on or just get up another call perhaps, and we'll get rocking here. And we're ready to go.
We're also going to ask you, just for the next hour, if you can do it, to go ahead and silence your notifications, your phone, your email, so that you can truly be present and get as much as you can from this event. We've got a ton of great stuff to give you, and we want to make sure that you're able to soak it all in. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and silence your notifications.
Shall we take a look at the poll?
Let's do it.
Take a look here. So, what country are you joining us from? We've got a mix of countries here. If you haven't logged in, please do. Here we go. Netherlands coming in. All right, any other? There we go.
Love it. You're all figuring out the poll. It's great.
All right.
I know we've got about 19 people in attendance, so I'm thinking there may be just a few more who are still figuring out that poll. Just as a reminder, if you open up the chat box, there will be a link there for you to click, and that's going to open up a separate browser window, and you can answer this question, and your answer will automatically show up live. In addition, in that chat box, there is a link for the handout that we'll be using actively during this session. So if you haven't yet grabbed that, click over there, get your handout printed out, and come on back and join us as we begin.
All righty.
Perfect.
Excellent. Let's press on.
All right.
Well, welcome again, everybody, to Shift Happens. We're going to teach you today how to develop adaptability and resiliency in this era. There's a lot going on these days, not just COVID-19, but a bunch of other things in our lives we're going to get into here shortly. Look, you're in the right place today if current events have created chaos in your life. And it's really kind of hard to believe that it has not created chaos in your life. Go back, if you think about it, just about 60 days ago, 90 days ago at the most, we were all working in offices. And then suddenly with the COVID virus hitting us, and now with all kinds of racial stress going on around the world, There's a lot going on in our lives. So you're in the right place if that's creating some chaos in your life. Perhaps you're also wrestling with some motivational challenges on a personal level as well as with your team.
You're in the right place today if you're looking for some practical and effective tools to help you to manage the current situation, or if perhaps you just need a little bit of inspiration. Well, welcome. My name is Leila Ansart. As I said earlier, I'm a certified executive coach, and I help leaders to adapt and nurture a possibility mindset. And I do that by focusing on increasing your competitive edge in every phase of life. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother. 2 kids are upstairs as we're all working from home still. I'm sure you understand. And I like to say, just as a funny get to know me moment, that I am a singer of one-liners.
Leila, you got to explain what a singer of one-liner means, please.
Where's my microphone? Just kidding. No, it's something I realized about myself, that I just break out into song when a conversation reminds me of a line, a lyric of a song. And I just tend to do that. And I held it in there for a while when I was first becoming, I guess, conscious of doing that. And then I thought, hey, heck, this is part of who I am. I'm just going to enjoy it. So if you happen to hear me break out in the song, just laugh along with me.
We'll know where it's coming from. That's great. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dennis Hodges. And as you may know, I'm one of the founding board members of CTAM Europe back in the day. I'm a creative catalyst, and I teach and train creative problem solving, helping companies embrace their innovation and creativity and drive change in organizations. I'm the author of a book, 11.5 Ways to Ignite Your Creativity. And my little quirk is that I'm curious about the thoughts of animals.
All right, you're gonna have to give us some more info on that.
All right. I was out for a walk yesterday, and there was a turtle. It's mating season for turtles. Now they're laying their eggs. I live near a lake. A turtle came out of the lake and was in the sand next to the lake, making a nest and laying eggs. I'm just imagining this female turtle going, "Love you forever," he said. "I'll help you build the nest," he said. And here I am building the nest by myself, and he's out there on the log with his buddies sunning, those types of silly things. That's kind of how I view the world.
You put a little story behind it. I love it.
All the time, all the time. Well, what you're going to learn during this hands-on chaos bootcamp is several things. We're going to teach you the 3 pillars of adaptive leadership. We're also going to give you some practical steps to help you and your teams feel more centered. And we're going to give you some tools to strengthen your problem-solving skills.
We're also going to share with you what a desert island has to do with your situation at the moment. We're going to together go through some hands-on exercises that will help you to navigate uncertainty. And we're going to share with you the one thing to avoid and what to do instead. So as an extra bonus at the end, because we know life can get in the way and work happens and clients happen and team happens, we'd like to encourage you to stay on through the whole webinar today and really interact with us. At the very end, we're going to give you this amazing gift. It's called a decision process cheat sheet. And what we've done is take the content that we're sharing with you today and we've put it in visual format and given you a map so that when you have a decision to make or you're going through a moment of uncertainty or struggle, you can refer back to this handout and remind yourself of the points we talked about today. So hang on with us to the end. We'll give you that in the link at the very end.
Let's get into it here. We're dealing with rapid, radical changes, and this is not a surprise to anybody. What I do find interesting, though, is that we're living in what's called VUCA times. It stands for volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. And I first ran across this term, it's been a couple of years ago. And I thought then, yeah, that's the time we're living in, and had no idea what we were in store for today. And you think about really just what's happened in the course of the first 6 months of this year, it's been absolutely volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. And I just want to give you this little idea what this looks like in the real world. This is me, right? And for the first time, and probably the only time in my entire life, an armed bank guard was welcoming me to come into the bank wearing a mask. I mean, just think about that for just a second on how crazy this whole thing is. This was just the other day when this happened. That's the world we're living in. Part of this chaos that we're dealing with, of course, are changing priorities. Think about your priorities back 90 days ago. When you get up in the morning, get the kids out the door to school, go to work, blah, 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 typical routine you had in place. And all of a sudden your priorities shifted. It's how can I work with kids climbing around, and how I got to be their teacher and teach them how to study. And all the changes that were created by that, now we're starting to integrate back into work in some cases. And some people are starting to head back to the office. Now the kids are home for the summer, but how's that change? Are there summer programs available? All kinds of priorities are shifting all the time. And the result is we have interruptions on all levels of your life, right? Every single day. I mean, how many of you have been photobombed by your kids coming in on a call like this? It happens, right? But it's also sort of opened us up to the reality that that's just life. That's part of what we're dealing with. But also it's created a certain amount of stress in our lives, a lot of stress going on. You know this feeling, you know how it looks. And in fact, if we were to illustrate this again a little bit differently, if you go back about, let's say the first part of March, this might have been what your life looked like. A nice walk, flat terrain, open space, got the dogs with you, great day to go for a run. And today, here's what your run might look like. Very treacherous, very confusing, very dangerous. You gotta be careful where you step and how you step.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask you now to go back to the poll, if you would please, and log into there. How resilient do you feel right now on a scale of 1 to 5, right this minute? 1, not at all resilient, 5, resilient. If you please just pop over to the poll real quick and just drop in your score, please.
Well, we've got answers, but they're not popping in.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure why. Yeah, go back and forward one, please.
Forward 1 and back. Not popping up. What are you seeing there, Leila?
Okay, so I've got several people. 75% of our audience today is saying that they're actually feeling a 4. So they're feeling pretty resilient, which is fantastic. It sounds like there, though, you're aware of some room for growth. I've got about 13% that are at a 5. About 13% that are at a 2, and another 13 at a 3. Oh, okay. Well, now they've changed because that adds up to more than 100. So as everyone answers, it changes the percentages. So we've got about 60% at a 4, and then about half of the remainder at a 2 and a 3, and then very few people are feeling at a 5. What we'd like to do here as well, because it's really important to kind of take a moment to self-reflect so that we can see our opportunity for growth, is take out that handout that we had you print out. And the very first item on it says the same question: rate your current resilience right now. How are you feeling right now today? And go ahead and write that down, and go ahead and put that date on there too, because we'd like you to see if there's a difference after we share the material with you today that we're going to share.
Great. You know, with the changes and the stress and the challenge that we all have, you really have a choice. You can decide that you and your team are in a rowboat without any oars in the middle of the ocean and are subject to the winds and the waves, and just kind of where things blow you, that's where you go. Or you can take the choice to take control of where you're going, set your destiny, and take leadership and set your course accordingly.
So today we're going to share with you the 3 pillars of adaptive leadership. And that might be leadership for your team and your organization. That also might be leadership for your own life, as Dennis just said, making that decision to be a little bit more intentional perhaps and lead your life in a way that you want it to go. So those 3 pillars are resilience, adaptability, and courage. Now let's dig into resilience to start. One of the things that I like to discuss with people, and I end up talking about this quite a bit as a coach, is that when people go through a hardship and then they figure out a way to survive through it, then oftentimes at the end, after that hardship is in the past and you've processed it and you've gotten over it and now you're on to something better, that's often when we can look back and say, wow, you know, that circumstance actually created resilience in me. And that's kind of how most people by default think that resilience is formed, just by going through hard stuff, figuring out your way through, and then finding at the other side, okay, I'm a little bit more resilient than I was in the past. What I'd like to share with you today and to suggest is that what's also possible to build resilience is when you're going through the hardship to create a perspective shift for yourself, to allow yourself through some tools that we're going to share with you today to see your current situation, that challenge that you're going through, these uncertain times, to see it in a different light, to look at it from a different angle. And then as you get a perspective shift, to use that perspective shift to actually apply resilience during the hardship. And what you end up doing is making that particular circumstance a bit easier, a bit more manageable, and a little bit more where you're feeling strong throughout it, even though it's not something you'd ever sign up for, right? So what if we could do that now? What if we could actually shift our perspective and feel more of a strength stepping into these areas of uncertainty and these challenges that are in front of us? And the way that we do that is that we focus on the things that we can control. Because we all know there are things that you can't control, right? We all know that. The weather is the obvious one. Global events, laws. Now we can control laws, obviously, through the process that you can take. But in terms of what's active right now, what's available to you right now, the fact that, COVID has completely changed all of our lives over the last 60 days, we can't control that other than to do the individual acts of being responsible and being careful that we can do. But to be able to really separate in our minds what we can control versus what we can't allows us to take an active role in shifting our perspective and helping us to stop stressing over the things, or at least reduce our stressing over the things that we cannot control.
What we'd like you to do right now is to grab your worksheet, if you would, please. And we have on here a list of events and things. And what we'd like you to do is to circle the things that you can control. And some of these things may seem a bit silly to you, like world events. Can I control world events? Well, I can't. But there's a process of when you log this down and you make a conscious decision to circle the things that you can control. This goes from your head down to your heart. It becomes a much more controllable situation where you begin to internalize and recognize things you can control from things you cannot control. So to give you just a minute, I'll put a little music on here for you. So just take a second, please, and go through that list and mark the things you can control. Okay, I'd like to bring you back now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so as we go on into the next step, once you've identified what you can control versus what you can't, the next thing that you want to do is take a look at some of the items that you can control, right? Some of the things that you can make a shift on, and go ahead and question the norms. I like to phrase this as question the rules that you've given yourself. For example, many organizations have had a default of working on site, right? It's, for the most part, I would say the vast majority, you show up to work in your office and that's where you do your work for several various reasons. But now, given the, the stay at home and the quarantine that we're in and coming through, that reality is completely changed. So if you think of that reality of, employees and your teams can be the most productive in the same building, or there may be other issues for privacy or security or what have you. Now, because of a circumstance outside of our control, that is completely shifted. That rule is no longer valid. So when you think about that, it helps you to say, okay, so what else that's inside my control am I perhaps trying to do, or I'm trying to work through with the same rules that were present before? And perhaps those rules are not valid. Here's another example. How has your organization defined its role in the marketplace? Perhaps it's the way that your product or service was delivered before. Perhaps it's your value statement and what you hope to deliver to your clients or your members or your partners. The service and value that you brought to through your organization to your clients before may be still what your goal is, but perhaps the rule or the norm of how you went about delivering that has now shifted. So by shifting your perspective and by saying, okay, here's an item that is within my control, but all of the global rules have changed, how do I perhaps need to change some of these rules for myself as well? This really comes to play as well with our own self-limiting beliefs. When we say to ourselves, well, I can't do it that way, or I could never do that, or my team won't be okay with that, or my superior, my boss won't be okay with that. If we get an idea, a creative idea to solve a problem in front of us, again, stopping and saying, wait a minute, maybe that's an old rule. Maybe it's not effective anymore. Maybe that rule isn't serving me to get to my greater good or to solve the problem here. And perhaps this is something I need to take a moment and reflect and say, if this is not serving me anymore, perhaps it's time to put those old rules aside. When we have old rules that limit us, that put us in a metaphorical box, it limits our ability to be resilient. And remember, part of how we build resilience in the middle of a struggle is by shifting our perspective. It's by gathering new data and then bringing that into our awareness and then allowing ourselves to create new rules, new norms for how to deal with the current struggle that we're in. So what we're going to do here is I give you just another 30 to 60 seconds. Pull that worksheet out again. Dennis is going to put on some nice thinking music for us. And I want you to just take a moment to see, when I spoke about the rules and the rules you've given yourself or the current rules that exist in your organization, if you're a leader, put down just a few of those that perhaps you're thinking, maybe I need to put some thought into changing these rules. Are they helping me and my team in creating resilience and in moving forward? So go ahead and write those down, just a couple of them on your worksheet.
And I want to bring you back now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you think about resilience and questioning the norms and even self-limiting beliefs in a historical perspective, go back to the old world explorers who, prior to heading west to see what was out there, the belief was if you sailed too far, you'd go to the edge of the ocean and fall off the earth. And that was a predominant belief without any proof. Yet that was what pervaded all of society and how people thought about the limits that they had in the world, the limits they had in their own lives. But you had people like Columbus and some other explorers who said, I don't believe that, or I want to test that, I want to prove that, I want to push the limits. And think about the courage it took and the resiliency and the adaptability it took for them to head west into unknown, literally uncharted waters to figure out what was out there on the other side. And so it's the same for us when we think about, Leila talked about the self-limiting beliefs we have, or some of the norms inside of your company. Question those and think, how can you approach those a bit differently? And where do you need to push those limits and those boundaries? So once you decide you want to make a shift, how do you go about it? Okay, how do you shift? The first step in the process is really acknowledge how you're feeling. This is such an important part of who we are as human beings because emotions are very much a part of us. I talked about the turtle earlier. Turtle doesn't have emotions, but we do have emotions. And it's important for us to embrace and address and recognize the emotions that we have. So you have two things I'd like you to do. One is to go back to your worksheet, if you would please, on the second page with adaptability. And on here are a list of emotions. I'd like to ask you to circle the emotions that you have felt over the past several weeks, let's say, not necessarily today, but kind of the roller coaster you've been on, and go ahead and recognize those real quickly here. Give you just a minute to do that. Okay, I'm gonna bring you back now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The second thing I'd like to ask you to do is to go over to the poll again, please. And just, if you would, tell us what position do you hold in your organization? Which kind of helps us get a sense for where you are and kind of what some of the stresses and challenges you're dealing with. If you pop over real quick to the poll and just list what position you hold in your company, we'd appreciate that real quickly here.
And if you joined us late, remember in the chat box, there is a link at the very top that all you have to do is click that link and it will allow you to take part in the poll.
Shall we take a look?
They're starting to come in now. Yeah, go ahead.
Here we go.
Thank you for sharing with us. This is so helpful as we speak. We want to be able to give examples and speak to your particular challenges based on these positions.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing those your positions with us. You know, out of chaos comes opportunity. And I think one of the best questions we can ask ourselves right now is, what does this make possible? Think about the chaos, the constraints, the challenges, the changes you've had, but what do all these changes have present to us as an opportunity to grow? There's an application out there that you can add to your phone. It's a phone app called Desert Island. And the way this app works, the concept is, if you're going to a desert island, what apps on your phones you absolutely have to take with you. So you download the app, you choose those apps, and those become your home screen on your phone, and all the other dozens of apps drop to the background, and they're not really relevant. It's a way of setting priorities, a way of changing your focus and changing how you think about the work that you have. So it's the same thing as, what does this make possible? It's, you're going to a desert island, this is what I need to survive, this is what makes it possible for me to do this. Going back to your worksheet, if you would please, again on the second page, I'd like to ask you to list 3 key challenges you're dealing with right now. The second part of that then is, excuse me, what are your top priorities then for you and for your company and organization? So we have just a couple of minutes here. I'll put some more music on and let you answer those questions in the worksheet. Again, thinking about, what does this make possible? I'm going to bring you back now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As you're thinking about what does this make possible, it's also a question of what's possible in regards to your priorities. I have a couple of stories for you. One was a neighbor of mine who during the lockdown and with kids being out of school, he's a pilot, a private pilot for a corporation. And because of his schedule, usually he's on the road 3.5 weeks a month. He's gone all the time. But this, so they gave him the opportunity. His kids are home. They had to be home, right? No school. They're teaching from home. He couldn't travel. Gave him a chance to reconnect with his children on a level he hadn't done in a number of years, just because of the different schedules and different things they had going on in their lives. Great opportunity. I think about it, from a business perspective. Leila mentioned the concept of having to report to work. Well, if you're the CEO of a company or senior manager in a company, you have all this real estate, all these desks in it. And because of the fact that everyone has now had to work from home, I believe in many cases, the stigma of working from home has been lifted. People realize you can work from home and you can be productive at the same time. Some shift in schedules, perhaps, because some of the constraints we had going on with children being home or our partners and spouses being home with us. But there's a chance then to shift that priority. If I were CEO of a company, I'd be wondering, do I need 3,000 seats in city center, high rent district of a city or not for my company? Or could I get by with a smaller real estate space, letting people work from home, which might better fit their lifestyle, help them on a personal level, as well as help the company in terms of absolutely reducing costs in that case. So again, thinking about what does this make possible? Also, the question is what's possible in regards now to your priorities? What has this opened up for you as an opportunity? And how could you reframe these challenges?
I'd like to throw one more example in here, Dennis, if I could.
Yes.
I know that some of the leaders that I work with, one of their key initiatives this year was to focus on creating an amazing place to work, being highly rated as a very attractive place to work for potential talent, to be able to keep high performing talent. And when you have all of this happen, that may be one of your organization's priorities this year. And now everything is just going crazy and all of our realities have shifted. So again, asking that question, what's the old rule? The old rule was we did it this way. We had these policies and these procedures to create that attractive stance for potential employees and for our current team. But now everything's shifted. So, one of the things to take a look at is to say, in that example, okay, so part of a team feeling, a business and its employees feeling like this is someplace that they feel heard and they feel valued, is to acknowledge the human component, like we had you do a few moments ago, to connect with your team and ask them, how are you doing right now? What do you need right now? Given the current unrest and the situation around race tensions, that may be something that's very needed right now. And as leaders, we have to be able to stop and say, to check in with our team and ask them how they're doing and how we can help. That's one way that you can create a team and a business that has an amazing attraction rate for great talent, because you're showing that these are the values that you hold. So this opportunity or the chaos in our world right now may actually be an opportunity in disguise to be able to show your values as an organization, to be able to move yourself forward toward your initiatives, but perhaps in a different way than you were originally thinking before. Oh, this is me. Okay. So our third pillar for the adaptive leadership pillars and the steps is courage. As we brainstorm the challenges that we're facing right now, and we think about possible solutions, our minds start to click, right? We're starting to get ideas, and we start to enter what I call the zone of possibility. This requires us to move outside of the comfort zones that we've been used to, the way that we used to do things, and it helps us and requires of us to take action in a new way. And when we get into that action-taking piece of solving a problem, then you have to think about this concept of courage, or we invite you, I should say, to think about. One thing I want to bring to your mind is that courage is not the absence of fear. When you go to do something new, a different way than you've ever done before, having conversations you haven't had before, or solving problems you never thought you'd need to solve, your automatic response is definitely going to have anxiety, fear, apprehension. That's, fear is kind of the overarching word that I'm speaking about. The reason for that is that our minds are actually wired to protect us. That is who we are in a very simplistic view. It's where we came from. And our minds, it tries to constantly scan our environment and look for danger so that we can avoid it. Now, back in the day, that was so we didn't get eaten by a tiger. But now those particular challenges aren't so real, but there are other challenges. And because of the way that our mind is wired, we do tend to scan our environment, as I said, look for danger. And then our brain says, wait, this new avenue, this new direction, this new possibility of problem solving, there's a lot of unknowns here, and this is danger. So our mind's screaming, danger, danger. And so that's when we feel in our body the fear, the anxiety, the apprehension, not knowing if we can move forward. So what you do in that scenario is, one, realize that just because you feel that doesn't mean that you can't still take a step forward. You can still choose courage, even though you feel the fear or the anxiety. What I like to say is thank your mind. Your mind is doing its job. It's trying to keep you safe. It's just perhaps not getting the full picture. So I like to actually acknowledge that and say, okay, to my unconscious mind, the part of me that's in charge of keeping me safe, thank you. Thank you for the message. But I'm going to set that warning aside for right now because that's not actually the full picture and it's not going to help me in moving forward. So resolve to move forward despite your apprehension or your fear and realize that this is true courage. I think we need to move our, oh, there it is. So then that leads us into that point that we shared with you that we wanted to share the one thing to avoid. And that is, don't feed your anxious brain. There's a lot of parts of what we're dealing with right now in the global events. And one of the main things that we all tend to do is watch news. And of course, you need to watch news for information, right? To be informed, to know what's happening. But also there's that point at which when you're watching news, it goes beyond information gathering and it kind of it's the same information over and over, and it's delivered in a way that is designed for ratings. It's delivered in a way that is designed to give you a reaction and make you want to hear it again. And that feeds your anxious brain. So that's one of the main things that you can, as an individual, decide how much news, how much media is the right amount for me so that I can get the information I need, but also don't overdo it and create this anxious brain that is already running in the background as it is trying to keep you from being eaten by a tiger.
Indeed, to add to that, Leila, it's interesting that my wife and I have breakfast together, and that's when we catch up on the morning's news. We have gone to setting a timer on our phones for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you have to turn off of the headline news. You can read other things, sports, not much sports right now, but entertainment or other type of, educational type information or something you want to read about, but it cannot be the headline news because of the fact that you get sucked into that hole, and it's really, really a dangerous place to go. What you can do instead of feeding your anxious brain is think about what you can control and control what you can. Go back to that first worksheet we did. You circle things on that first page of things you can control. The rest of it, you just need to let it go.
That's right.
You just let go of it, let it go to the side, don't worry about it anymore, because it'll just continue to feed you. What's interesting is that because of working from home and the changes in our lives, there's been little pockets of time, as I like to call them, that popped up. And the question is, we talked about how much time you need to spend on the news or on social media. It's okay to do that, but just try to manage that to the best you can. I use an app called Duolingo to learn languages. And there was one of their screensavers on there that said, 15 minutes a day can teach you a language. What does 15 minutes of social media get you? So if you think about it, what can you do for yourself on a self-care basis in 15 minutes? It doesn't sound like a lot of time, but I'll give you a couple examples. I mentioned the Duolingo idea of learning a language in 15 minutes a day, and you can do it. I mean, it's possible. Or 15 minutes to take a walk. Taking a walk is such a healthy thing to do for your soul and for your body and for your mind. What's interesting is it doesn't matter whether you're walking indoors or out of doors. Now, Northern Hemisphere, it's early summer, gorgeous weather, great time to get out, and now we can get out a bit more. But what happens when you take a little walk is it opens up the divergent thinking in your brain, which is finding unique solutions to your problems. And it comes when you walk, for whatever reason. I'm not a scientist, but it does help. So you just take a walk for 15 minutes, helps clear your mind, help you sort through some things, do some things for your soul as well. Little exercise doesn't hurt. Or another thought for 15 minutes. You ever want to write a book? Do the math. A 60,000 word book is about how long a good novel is, or a good business book. If you type at 40 words a minute, okay, it's not a massive speed, but reasonable speed, for 15 minutes a day only, you can get your book written in 90 days. 15 minutes a day of writing. So
That's
it's very
shocking.
possible. It's amazing. I mean, we don't think about it. I think 15 minutes is nothing. We can accomplish a lot in 15 minutes and take care of ourselves.
Right.
It's really, really important.
The other thing to think about when you think about that 15 minutes a day or taking a small act of courage is what can you do to move yourself toward your organization's goals as well. If you go back to the earlier example I gave of creating a top places to work in your organization, or perhaps that's a personal goal for you and your team. In 15 minutes, you can reach out to 2 people and ask them how they're doing. In 15 minutes, you could take a conversation that could be, in your chair, in your home office, or you could say to your teammate, hey, let's take a walk while we're talking. Let's have a walking meeting. In 15 minutes, you could create momentum toward making change in your organization. So a lot of times we overthink, how do I make these changes? And first you got to get over the fear of making the change and going into something new. And then we can oftentimes get overwhelmed by this big new direction that we've now had the creativity to come up with. And we encourage you to break it down to what can you do in 15 minutes or a few 15 minutes put together. So we have a social media campaign happening right now that we'd love you to share. It's #ActOfCourage. And either now or later, we'd love to have you think about something that you could do in 15 minutes that would meet the need for you, either for self-care or for moving a particular goal in your organization forward. Think about what some of those are. And actually, if we can change the slide, we're going to ask you to share some of those with us now. If you go over to the poll, share a small act of courage that you can do today. And in addition, we're kind of making you put it down a few different places, so forgive us, but we really want you to remember. We want you to share it to encourage others and give them ideas, but then we want you to write it in your handout at the top of the 3rd page, because we want you to remember those ideas for yourself. So share with us here, what could you do in 15 minutes a day? We've got meditation. That's awesome. I love that. Yoga. Yes, even 15 minutes. I mean, honestly, if one of your goals is to increase your activity level during this, you could do 15 minutes of squats and push-ups in between meetings. I mean, that's simple. That's simple. Someone said they need to go walking more. Boldly call former colleagues. I love that. That is such an act of courage. That's wonderful. Talking to your team. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing these. Read these ideas that others are sharing, running, and put them down on your list too if something speaks to you. Sleep more.
Sleep more.
That's absolutely super important. Make sure you're well rested.
There you go.
Reach
Lost
out
contacts.
to lost contacts. Yes.
Okay. Be your personal best in your daily run. Excellent. A little goal to set there.
These are beautiful. We're going to give you a couple more seconds here because you guys are getting some great ideas out. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. What I like about all these, a lot of these deal with self-care as well. And self-care, you think about it when you're on an airplane and the announcement comes on about if the face mask should drop, please put yours on first before you put on the person next to you. You think that's kind of selfish. But what it means is if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't help others. And so a lot of these ideas on here, the meditation, time with my family, those are self-care issues that feed your soul, that help you become a better parent, a better partner, a better leader as well.
I love these. We're getting more. Have good
Now we are.
conversations with family. Someone wants to have another glass of wine. I
There you
love
go.
that too. Hey, sometimes you need to. Oh, these are fantastic ideas.
Great.
We are
Thank
so
you so much.
appreciative of you sharing, you know, what's speaking to you right now, what's percolating inside. I love it.
What's great about these ideas, they fall into the category of what we call micro commitments. Okay, someone wrote just a second ago, I need to go walking more. Okay, you've been walking, it's walking a bit more. Micro commitments are a great way to try to realize these ideas you have in place. Look, in the chaos we've been dealing with, a lot of our known routines and patterns just were blown out of the water, right? You had a routine in the past. You get up in the morning, what your morning routine was before you walked out the door to go to work. Now all this went crazy because of kids are home, you're home, partners are home, everything, all the chaos that comes with that. But by making a micro commitment and committing to a what by when idea helps an awful lot. So, excuse me. What's important is to have these short-term measurable goals. And so what that means is you make a micro commitment. I'm going to go walking more. What does that mean? That means today I'm going to take my 15-minute walk, or tomorrow I'm going to add an extra 5 minutes to my walk. Something where you make that small commitment and then you get that feel of satisfaction by achieving those goals. The same with someone wrote, you know, calling former colleagues or people you've lost contact with. That first phone call may be hard to make, but you know how good it's going to feel when you do that and how rewarding it is. So making that commitment, okay, I'm going to call some former colleagues. Who are you going to call? When are you going to call them? Make a quick list, make some commitments to yourself, and then execute on those ideas. We have a space on the worksheet then for some of these micro commitments and some times and dates. We're not going to take time right now, but we do encourage you when you get off the call, while it's still fresh in your mind, to put down some micro commitments and set some dates to those so you make that commitment to yourself to be able to move forward.
And thank you. Whoever said call former colleagues, that's making me think. I'm writing that one down on the side here too. So thank you for sharing. I love it. So as we come to a close today, let's go ahead and recap. Today we shared with you the 3 pillars of adaptive leadership, and they are resilience, adaptability, and courage. We shared with you practical steps to help you and your teams to feel more centered. We offered you tools to strengthen your leadership problem-solving skills. We did hands-on exercises to help you navigate uncertainty. And we shared with you the one thing to avoid and what to do instead. And hang on with us just a little longer. We're going to give you that bonus sheet that we promised. But just before we do that, let's do a little bit of question and answer.
Right. So what questions do you have? We've been talking quite a while here. You've given us some feedback on the polls. Are there any specific questions that you'd like to ask us that we could probably help you with? Please drop in the chat window and we'll be happy to talk about those.
We're going to wait just a moment for those questions to come in. If you don't have a question, but you'd like to share with us the one thing that you see yourself implementing from today's session, hopefully there's more than one, right? But what's that top thing or those top 2 things that you say, you know what, I'm doing this. This is speaking to me and I'm going to implement it. Share that with us in the comments as well. We'd really love to hear from you. And if you don't have either of those 2 things to share, go ahead and take these couple of minutes to work on your worksheet and put down those micro commitments that came to mind a few moments ago. And as Dennis said, adding in, when are you going to do it? What is the small act that you're going to take? And then when are you going to do it by? That'll be very helpful to building momentum.
Right. And if you're uncomfortable asking questions in the chat window right now, here's our email address. You can drop us a note at shifthappens.adaptnow@gmail.com. And we'd be happy to respond to you and answer your questions that way, or even have a follow-up call with you. Are we seeing anything in the chat window there?
We're not.
What about the Q&A window? Do you see that one?
Yes, there is one. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, I just happened to see something pop up there.
This is great. So someone said, it's easy to implement these ideas right now, but how do we keep it up next week and the week after?
I think in my mind, that goes back to the micro commitments And by making a small commitment, not saying you're going to work out for an hour a day every day for the next 6 months. You make a small commitment to yourself. Something that you think is achievable is really most important, because that's a way to claw back some normalcy in your life and some standardization and some routine in your life, is by making that small commitment. That's my suggestion. Leila?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also add to that. I'm a very visual person. If that's the kind of the way you are as well, I think having something written down and keeping it in front of you for these goals is very, very helpful. So you could utilize the worksheet that we gave you, the map that we're about to give you in a moment. You could utilize those. You could use some sticky notes and just put, these are my top 3 micro commitments, and every time I do it, I'm going to put a check mark on there. I mean, you could stick that on the front of your fridge or on your bathroom mirror, someplace that you look at all the time to help you to remember and remind you of your commitment to yourself. And then the other thing that I always find super helpful is sharing that commitment with someone. And if you have a relationship where you can ask for accountability or a check-in or an encouragement partner, whatever you want to say, hire a coach, whatever piece of that appeals to you, to be able to say, these are the things I want to work on. And we all have busy lives. We all have great intentions and then don't always follow through. So there's no need to be embarrassed, but to have a buddy or a friend or a coach that you're working with to say, here's what I want to take active steps forward on, and can you help me? Let's check in once a week, or honestly, that's a little too far. I would say, let's check in 3 times a week. Have you done that 15-minute thing? And if not, let's do it now. Let's do it together. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Let us know if you'd like to talk more. We will stay on at the end if you'd like to chat more. So one other comment, someone said they'll be taking action to talk to their team on a regular basis. That's wonderful. That is really wonderful, and it's going to make a huge difference in your team feeling connected, in you feeling like you have a great pulse on what's going on with them, and in all of you weathering this current storm well.
Right.
That same person said having courage to work on a new solution. Wonderful. I love that you're going to implement that. And even just to be conscious that you need courage, that you're going to feel the fear and that you're going to actively, intentionally step forward is such a beautiful step. Let me see if there's anything more here. Okay. Wonderful. So again, just as a reminder, share with us that one thing that you plan to implement from today's session. We'd really love to hear back from you. It also helps us to hear what spoke to you the biggest, and maybe in a future event, what we might spend even more time on. So let's go ahead and progress our slide. As we promised, we are so excited to offer you this decision process map. I'm putting the link into the chat box now, and you can grab that. And it looks like what Dennis is holding up. Oh, Dennis, show him again. Oh, that's the cover. Can you give him that second page view?
Second page view there?
Yes. As we mentioned, having that visual reminder in front of you is so helpful. And that's what we hope to accomplish with this map. So grab that giveaway at the end in that link, and it'll be emailed out to you shortly if you go ahead and click that link and fill out the information. We did just get a comment here. Let me share. I'm trying to use bookends for each day. The morning and evening are the 2 arenas I can control. So what I do during my first and last 30 minutes are my bookends. That's from Anne. Thank you, Anne. That's a fabulous idea.
That's a great idea. Great way to start and end the day, so you have that concrete beginning and end to it. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes, keeping that intentional role. I love it. Okay. So again, grab the giveaway. I just put it in as a link in the chat box. That's the decision process map that Dennis has a picture of up on the screen here. And as a reminder to you, we could progress the slide, please. If you would, share with us on social media, any platform that you take part in. If you'd like to share and encourage others to do this as well, use the hashtag #ActOfCourage. And share with us and with others what small steps that you're going to take to move yourself forward and to embrace this new reality in whatever way that you need to, whether that's personal or in your professional arena.
Listen, we thank you for your time today and your attention and your commitment to joining us in this session. We hope you found it valuable. We'd be happy to support you and your organization with the same content. We're thankful to CTAM Europe for letting us share this with you. If you'd like to know more, you can connect with us again at shifthappens.adaptnow@gmail.com. And here are both Leila's and my personal contact details if we haven't connected. We both love to connect with you on LinkedIn, for example. So feel free to reach out to us there. Leila, you want to talk about the survey?
Yes, in the poll tab, the browser window that you have open where you were participating in our polls, and thank you so much. You guys have been a fantastic audience and we loved hearing from you. You'll see active now a short survey, just a couple of questions that helps us to understand what spoke to you the most, if you have any feedback to help us learn and grow, and if you'd like to share anything further. So please take a moment before Xing out of all the windows to fill that out in the next 15 or 20 minutes. We'd really love to hear from you on that.
So we'll stay on that's our content. That's our whole session for you, the boot camp. We covered a lot of ground. We do encourage you to go back to the handout again and fill out those sections we did not complete on the call. That was by design, by the way. There's just some more deep thought things in there that we need a longer webinar to make that happen. But I do encourage you to take some time and fill out those thoughts to complete your whole thought process behind Shift Happens and how you can deal with it. And we'll stay on the call here a little bit longer. If you have any other questions, want to chat a bit more, we're happy to take your questions and comments.
Yes, wonderful. So if you do need to pop off, it was great to meet you. Hope you have a fabulous week. And we really look forward to staying in touch with you in the future. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. And we'll hang out in case anybody else wants to chat.
Yeah, thanks, Leila and Dennis. That was really, really good session. Thanks for putting all the slides together and making it so interactive. It was a really interesting one. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And now I know that in 15 minutes a day, I can write a book before Christmas. I might write a parenting self-help book.
I love it.
To cope with 2 children during lockdown.
I'll buy that one from you, Karen.
I will give it to you for free. And if anybody wishes to view the recording of the boot camp, it will be uploaded onto the members only section of CTAM Europe, along with all the past webinars and podcasts, if you need to check any out. And Dennis's and Leila's contact details are on there if you have any further questions as well. And then just a quick comment about next week's webinar, just to show that we have a diverse range. Next week, we've got a masterclass with Jörg Niesing, who is Senior Affiliate of Marketing at INSEAD. He's one of the leading faculty members who teaches at our annual executive program. And his topic next week, he'll be discussing optimizing and digitizing customer experience in an agile world. And I'm sure we can all agree that this is something that we need at the moment because it's definitely an agile world. So he's put a lot in there about how companies are engaging and dealing with all the issues with COVID-19. So that's next Thursday. We normally have the webinars on a Wednesday, but next one is Thursday. So I will leave Dennis and Leila to finish off now, but thank you very much. It was a really, really enjoyable session. And
thank you so much,
everyone, for joining in as well so much.
Fabulous. So we have some people doing surveys right now. That's fabulous. Thank you so much. And I don't see any more comments. There were several, 2 or 3 people who wrote several items that spoke to them, which I can share with you later.
Yeah, great.
But no other questions.
Okay.
But we do have 9 people still hanging on. So we're wondering, you 9 people, 2 of them are us. If you do have further questions or you'd like to chat, please let us know in the chat box and we'll hang out for just another minute or 2.